to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll now call the meeting formally to order. Commissioner Puglisi is participating today remotely. Commissioner Puglisi, are you present?
I am, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good, it comes across loud, so that's great. All right, we'll go ahead and begin with a couple matters of decorum. First of all, the rules of decorum will be strictly observed during the meeting. Pete, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
There are no additions or deletions to the agenda this morning.
All right, we have two presentations today. The first one is the briefing that we receive every week. Dr. Kerr, thank you again. Thank you for taking very precious time that you have. If you identify yourself for the record, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Jeff Coor, Director of Public Health for Mesa County. Just start off with three numbers. Our 2-week number, we're up to 1,800 cases in a 2-week period. You know, that's important with which stage we're in. And so we're, you know, that's very high regardless of the stage we're looking at with the state of Colorado. Our next stage would be stay at home. We have 37 people hospitalized right now, and then as of yesterday, there were 2 more deaths reported, so we have 27 COVID deaths in Mesa County right now. In regards to hospitals, we have 62% of our med-surg beds are available, and 54% of our ICU beds are currently available. Now, as I talk to the hospitals, it's important that we don't just look at beds themselves because it's staffing for those beds as well, which is key. And so, you know, COVID's certainly run its way through all sorts of sectors, and hospitals not excluded from that. This week, the hospitals have to submit a med-surg plan to the governor. We've been working with our hospitals since March, as you know. Everything seems to indicate that hospital capacity is going to become more of a major player in the decisions related to stay-at-home order statewide. My team is still working to lower the numbers at the nursing homes, the jail, and with the homeless population. Certainly, those are all high-risk areas, and we're continuing to work on those. Had a couple more nursing home positives come up yesterday. 2 of the most recent deaths were of that age. I don't know exactly if they were in the nursing home, but they were of that age. So still wreaking havoc on the community. We do have increased testing capacity at the fairgrounds. We added a oral-based curative test. So with the nasal test that we have, our capacity was right at about 800. Our capacity now can be as high as 1,200 with that additional test. As people enter the fairgrounds, we will divert them to a different lot if they claim to have symptoms, and then we'll do that oral test on them, and that's also a PCR test, so we don't have to run an additional diagnostic to accompany that. So it's been helpful, and it really is just adding another station. So very helpful. We started that on Friday. And then on Saturday, then as you know, or may not know, CMU has also opened their testing facility to the public. But on Saturday, both sites were really had very little business. So maybe that's a sign of things to come. We had winding cars at the fairgrounds. We would have 3-hour wait times. My staff worked with the fairgrounds staff to come up with a different way of doing it, a different system. So now what they're doing is they're parking all the cars in lines, and then they're just releasing those lines as space opens up. But that way we know when we get to 800 in those parking stalls that we just cut people off. So that way we won't have any more backed up traffic on the highway as we did last week. I think the line was about a mile long. There were new public health orders that came out last week. They really, for the most part, incorporated the orange level into our local order. But we also had local enhancements where we included no indoor or outdoor events or indoor or outdoor public gatherings, and then no live music at restaurants and bars. So, we did that specifically, and, it sounds like that was a good move simply because we know that we need to target the things that are the sources of our infections, and it really is about gatherings. Now, more about the informal gatherings with family and friends. Those a few weeks ago were limited to no more than 10 people from no more than 2 households, but certainly that's going to be very difficult to enforce. All we can do is ask the communities for their cooperation on that. And then we did place an order last week for a very low temperature freezer for the new vaccine. Looks like we're gonna get that in about a week or 2, which is great. And that'll hold about 240,000 doses. So that's in addition to the low temperature freezers that the hospitals have. So we should be able to more than readily handle all the vaccine that is shipped to us. Not only for Mesa County, but the catchment area for all the hospitals is about 300,000. So, so as much that we can do for the region, we're willing to help out. And then finally, I know that you released a press release last week talking about your support, your encouragement of social distancing and mask use. I do appreciate that. We've always said from the beginning that I represent you. We are all Mesa County. That's great coming from you, but your work is done through me, and that's been a great relationship. In fact, I did an interview yesterday with someone from a Stanford publication and talked about the strength of that relationship, that we don't have a whole lot of individuals stepping up to lead this effort, and really your support of me has been a way that this has worked very well in Mesa County. Now, I will say that other businesses, other leaders are now starting to step up through videos and things like that, and I think it's all hands on deck right now. I think that everyone needs to encourage mask use, social distancing, and the more places that comes from, the better. So, but with that, as always, I do appreciate your support. And that's it. I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Kerr. And because Commissioner Puglisi is remote, we'll go ahead and begin with her, if you don't mind, Commissioner Justin. Commissioner Puglisi, if you go ahead and start us this week.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Jeff, for that briefing. As we were talking about potential overflow for hospitals, I keep thinking about what the state's motivation was to rent a facility, get it ready for COVID overflow, and then relinquish it. What a waste of money and potential space for us. So, I just, that could have been a great opportunity. So, nothing you can respond to on that one. Unless you know if they're gonna attempt to take that Wellbrook facility back over.
I don't know. I agree with you. As I was hearing the governor's office speak about, trying to get more information from the hospitals, I was almost thinking that may be the next thing out of their mouths, but no such thing. And I've never really heard a reason why they took down that facility, but we could certainly use it again. I think it was an additional 25 to 50 beds, so.
Okay, thank you. I feel like, the board has stepped up and tried to do everything that we can do in the community. I know, I've gotten a lot of feedback from businesses that they're incredibly scared of shutting down. And so, obviously, we're continuing to encourage people to be vigilant so we can keep our businesses open. So thank you for your leadership, and obviously our board for stepping up and doing that. I think that that's really important for the community. We do want to try to keep things open as much as we can. So other than that, thank you for your report as always. We appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Puglisi. Commissioner Justin.
Morning, Dr. Jeff. So the people that are hospitalized, is it all the older people? Is it spread across the age brackets, or?
It's spread across. We were concerned about the nursing home outbreaks early on and what it would do pressure-wise, but the hospitals didn't seem concerned simply because so many of those folks have a do not resuscitate, they've been taken home. So there are a lot of wide representation, and we do see, you know, timely discharges, so that, you know, it comes and goes certainly on a daily basis.
So is CMU operating at, as the school is open, or is there, they haven't closed down, have they?
They're gonna send students home soon, just for the remainder of the semester, and then bring them back next semester. So, that's why they've been able to make their testing facility available to us. The original plan was starting today, it's available to the public from 3 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. But I think we're talking about, we would make it available, for, you know, throughout the day, once that, process has happened, once the students have left. They're requiring the students to go through testing to make sure they're not traveling ill, which I think is a good responsibility.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Commissioner Jessup. Again, Doctor, thank you very much for coming today. A few points. Number one, in regards to Mr. Jessam's inquiry on CMU, I didn't even think about this, but it brought to my attention, I think by you, Doctor, that CMU's doing a fantastic job on campus, but they have a lot of students that live off campus. So, you know, they can't get full compliance. I hope they get full compliance. They certainly control the campus. But then it's up to our department to help. Remember, a lot of these people are off, and we still have to, you know, focus in that regards. I do want to commend you, and obviously, everybody in the state is looking at Mason County, not because of the upswing we've had, but because of the 5-star program that you initiated. Would you very briefly, just tell the two commissioners what you told me last week in regards to a 5-star program? The governor's, very encouraged by it, and it does, if it's done correctly, seem to build a level between Orange and stay-at-home. So, just give us a brief comment on the 5-stars.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner. A lot of the Front Range health departments, had submitted a letter to the governor's office asking for a statewide stay-at-home order. So I reached out to, the director of CDPHE and just asked her that, you know, once again, it's a one-size-fits-all, and, maybe some of those components are good for Mason County, but we still want that 5-star, those 5-star businesses to be an exception, because they have shown that they are willing to implement those best safety practices to keep their customers and their employees safe. So, so Jill wrote back and just said, yes, if, you know, the governor wishes that the 5-star program could go statewide, and so it is great encouragement. And we've given a template to Boulder County the Tri-County area, which are the 3 counties around Denver, and then down to the Colorado Springs area. So, so yeah, it's catching on. It makes great sense. It's a little complex. I was on a call yesterday with all the local health departments, and I was thinking about that, because they're talking about, is there another level they can create between red and orange? And, you know, for us, that is the 5-star, but, I was starting to think about how we could introduce that in that sort of a setting without it coming through the governor's office. And it's somewhat complex. I forwarded it to Larimer County and had to explain quite a bit on how it's implemented. So, but yeah, it's a great program, and it keeps our balance between physical health, mental health, and the health of our economy. So.
And, would you just give the public's information an idea of how many businesses are in it, how many businesses have applied for it, and my guess is businesses that have applied for it are already in compliance, we just haven't had a chance to inspect, but they're prepared in case the inspector shows up to give them the 5-star. So just a little about that,
Sure.
the success of it in the county.
Yeah, so, the 5-star, there's a checklist that we go in, and we're asking those businesses to implement everything on the checklist, and it's, require mask use with customers, require mask use with employees and volunteers and contractors, appropriate signage, limit capacity to 50%, but show that there's a method for doing that. Spacing of tables and things like that, that really goes hand in hand with the 50% limitation. They need to show us that there is a policy and procedure for cleaning, and then also for, monitoring employee symptoms. And then there's enough hand sanitizer, hand washing stations around to, accommodate, the crowds that they have in their facilities. And so that's basically it. Those are really the basic rules of any of the orders, but we're just asking them, would you strictly implement these on a voluntary basis? And, so if they agree, then they sign an agreement, they send it back to us, they're allowed to operate until we visit them. And right now, we have about 300 facilities that have either become 5-star certified or are interested in it. We had 90 of them already certified going into this, so it's an additional 200, and we're beyond halfway through that next list. So that way they don't have to hold up. We appreciate their partnership in implementing this, and so our note to them is that we'll get to you within the next week or so.
Well, the workaround compliance is getting exactly what we want. We're able to keep a lot of it operating, the economy operating, and I saw a story over the weekend where Walmart was gonna start having door counters, and they're not gonna allow more than 20% of their capacity, and in my opinion, the way the story was, what it said, I'm thinking, you could create a real panic with this kind of thing. You're gonna take off all the food in the grocery shelves in this county, et cetera, et cetera. But when you do a little research into it, you find out Walmart rarely has more than 20% of their capacity in the store at any given time.
Right.
So what these stores are doing is they're being smarter about it. And not that they were, I don't mean to imply they weren't smart before, it's just a new thing for us. So they're learning, and we're learning, and there's no reason to panic. I mean, a lot of what's being put in place is just, okay, we adjust our hours. Walmart, by the way, while they're having compliance, they've now expanded their hours. And I'm not picking on Walmart, I just thought, good for you, Walmart. But we've gotta make sure in the reporting that, look, this is a workaround, there's no reason to panic, the supply chain's working, and, because the worst thing we could have now, so I think Franklin Roosevelt said the worst fear is but fear itself, same thing here with the panic, we don't need that.
Right.
Because they're working, they're being challenged, but they're working, so, I commend you on that. I want to, mention just real briefly, so out there at the, so the Mesa CMU is just allowing public testing on weekends, or they're opening it up every day?
Every day from 3 to 5:30, and then they had some availability this weekend, so we put that on our website as well. So what that turns into, I think, when the students are gone, because we're still gonna have access, they're still gonna run that site, so it might be full day. And the weekends is great, because we shut our facility down on Sunday and Monday, so CMU is open on at least those 2 days. That really picks up a lot of slack for us, so.
We might consider it towards, as our line begins to build way up, my guess is the reason that they were slow is people didn't know where it was or all about it. We could maybe hand out a brochure for people that have a 3.5-hour wait ahead of them and say, there's call over Mesa, there's capacity at Mesa, here's your directions, if you wanna head that way, you're probably not gonna have a 3-hour wait, you got a chance to cut your wait if you wanna go to Mesa or to any other option we come up with.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to ask about, so, how many people are going for repeat tests, and what's that doing to the system?
So we have.
Did repeat tests without symptoms, so I'm not saying somebody gets tested and then they get horribly sick, they should go get a repeat test, but that's not back to the original question.
About half of our tests that we've done to date, are unique individuals, one-time visit. The other half are repeat visit. But at what point do they become symptomatic and then positive? We have no way of knowing that. So, I think part of the encouragement of available testing is going to involve frequent visits by various folks. So, yeah, it's a great number, and actually we just ran that this morning. So, yeah. So that would mean that about half showed up with symptoms and, were diagnosed, because obviously there's no reason to come back after you've had it, at least as far as we know. So yeah, we do have a good number of people back now. How many, what's the average? Is it 5 visits per person? We don't know that as of yet.
That's a good number, thank you very much. And finally, I do want to follow up on the leadership plan. So kudos to you, kudos to the emergency plan coordinator and all the people, the minds that come together. So Mesa County has some time ago, through efforts of leadership such as yourself, put together a program countywide that if we were to have a crisis, of course, nobody thought it'd be a pandemic, but if we were to have some kind of crisis, the responsibility, if we're in a pandemic type of thing, responsibility would be centralized. We wouldn't have the right arm not doing what the left arm is doing, right arm, the left arm is doing. We wouldn't have doubling up, we realize efficiency, and it would very quickly be deployed that way. And that's exactly what happened in Mesa County. Pursuant to this plan, which was ready to go, not specifically for this, but I do know, and you'll remember very well, the discussion we had that you shared with me back in February. We were talking about this thing going on in China, neither one of us at the point, and, my 2 colleagues may have been there as well, I'm not trying to exclude them, but, I can't remember exactly who was in the discussion, but at any rate, we didn't think it was gonna come here, but you said, well, we've got a plan in place. It was put together years ago. We've actually, you told me, you said, we've already dusted it off, just in case it comes here. Well, we have a huge advantage, again, thanks to your leadership, we have a huge advantage. When it did get here, we didn't have to start dusting it off, and we had the plan in place. And within days of getting here, the city was on it, the communities, through it, everybody, it all came together. So, and we have one, in my opinion, 1 5-star general, that's Dr. Kerr. And, we're proud he's with the county, obviously, but, I'm glad you kind of explained that, because it's working very well. There's lots of very good faith cooperation, excuse me, whether it's the hospitals, the communities, it's all funneling just as your plan, said it should. So I just wanted to, more for public information, and kind of how that was put together, how it's working, and so there's lots of reason to be concerned. But it's steady as she goes. It is all hands on deck. But the next thing they say is, steady as she goes. Keep it steady, and that's what you're doing. So thank you very much.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay, Commissioner Puglisi, any follow-up questions, comments?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Jessup.
Thanks, Dr. Jeff.
You bet.
All right, Dr. Kerr, thank you. We know you have a busy schedule. We appreciate your briefing every week.
Thanks, Commissioner.
So our second item today is the Adoption Awareness Month for November 2020. And Commissioner Justin, I believe you have the proclamation. If you wouldn't mind, read the proclamation in the form of a motion.
I make a motion to adopt the National Adoption Awareness Month, November 14th. Whereas, all children deserve a safe, loving family to protect and care for them, and whereas, there are abused and neglected children in the County Department of Human Services who are waiting for a safe and loving family, and whereas, often these children are older children who may have unique medical, psychological, or physical needs, and whereas, adoption is the permanency plan for many children in Mesa County each year, and whereas, nearly all these children have specific challenges when awaiting adoption, and whereas, these children need extra patience and support to help them overcome previous hardships, and whereas, families who are able and willing to adopt children who have special needs are needed in Mesa County, and whereas, children waiting for adoptive parents and families who have adopted these children require and deserve community and public agency support. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Mesa County Commissioners hereby proclaims November 2020 as National Adoption Awareness Month in Mesa County, and urges all citizens, community agencies, religious organizations, businesses, and others to celebrate adoption, honor families that grow grow through adoption, further an awareness of the challenges and issues of adoption, and focus attention on those children who live in the shadows of an uncertain future while they await permanent families. In witness whereof, we hereunto set our hands and cause to be affixed the official seal of Mesa County, the 16th day of November 2020. Mesa County Board of Commissioners, Commissioner Rose P. Polkisi, Commissioner Scott McGinnis, and Commissioner John Justman.
Thank you.
Second.
Sarah has a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, is there any objection to the motion? That is the vote, that is the vote, the chair calls the vote, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Commissioner Puglisi, all right, it's unanimous, the motion is adopted. Accepting the proclamation today for the adoption month is the adopted parents, Nicole and Austin Duckworth, are they present today in the audience? Ma'am, thank you for coming, and if you'd like to, please approach the podium. Both of you may approach the podium, identify yourself for the record, you may proceed. We'll do a picture first. Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and proceed. Identify yourself for the record.
Joe Kelly, Division Director for the Child Welfare and Adult Protection units here in Mason County for the Department of Human Services. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about the importance of adoption. Unfortunately, there are children and youth here in Mason County who are unable to return to their parents for one reason or another. They are in need of guidance, stability, nurturing, and most of all, a sense of belonging. These children and youth have had a hard time healing from abuse and neglect until they reach legal permanency, a time in their lives where the transitions of being in the foster care system finally can come to an end. The selfless acts from those who come forward to adopt these children and youth gives them this opportunity. Countless amounts of home visits from social caseworkers, therapists, court personnel, and licensing specialists does not sway them from providing the safe haven these children and youth need to move forward in their lives. I stand here humbled and honored to accept this proclamation for the National Adoption Awareness Month, and here to accept with me is Nikki Duckworth, an adoptive parent here in Mason County. I would like to leave you all with this quote, and it states, "Adoption is not the call to have the perfect rosy family. It is the call to give love, mercy, and patience." And with that, I'd like to turn the time over to Mrs. Duckworth.
Thank you, Joan. Thank you for your leadership in this regard. Ma'am, you may approach the podium, identify yourself for the record, and proceed, and thank you very much for attending today.
My name is Nikki Duckworth, and actually this week we get to adopt our 5th adopted kiddo, which will make 8 for us. But we started the process through foster care. We actually did not intend to adopt, but they come into your home and they just need a safe place and some love and care, and they stick with you. They're just in your hearts. And so our first 2 we adopted back in 2015. On National Adoption Day that year as well, so we're almost 5 years with them. We adopted 2 more. The first 2 were a sibling group. We adopted 2 more a couple years ago, and they're a sibling group, and we're actually adopting their younger sister this week. So we have a variety of some behavioral and some medical and physical disabilities, but they are all super special in our hearts, and we just changed our life and made it a better way to live.
Well, thank you very much. And how's it going for the whole batch? They're all doing good?
Doing pretty good, yes. Doing well. Enjoying every new day that we have. So.
Commissioner Justman.
Thanks for being here today, and over the years I've attended a couple of your, when we could all get together at different times with some of your adopted parents and their families, and they're really a unique, caring, wonderful people. They all had different backgrounds and different, I don't know how to say it, they were just so outgoing and glad they could help a child or a young person and take them in their home, and some of them had more than one. staff that you could connect the right people with the right kiddos or young adults, and it's a tough job. Thanks for what you do for the county.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Puglisi?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, for your presentation today. I always say that there's a special place in heaven for, people who adopt children in our community in need. And so we really appreciate you giving them a warm, loving, and stable home, and, they will become better members of our society because of you. So thank you so much for all that you do. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. I agree with both comments, and, I don't know, it's kind of like angels adopting angels. It's remarkable. And Joe, thank you very much, and for the support that, you're able to give the adopted families, but, it's just remarkable, and this proclamation, we all remember once a year, because it's one of the, excuse me, more emotional ones. You really are saving lives, and, so thank you very much, we appreciate it, and, Joe, thank you again. All right, we're gonna go ahead now and proceed with our commission reports. Commissioner Puglisi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I spent a lot of last week, in conjunction with other counties, working on my testimony before the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission regarding, the interface of wildlife on federal lands. That was my specific testimony. You know, the commission, as much as I appreciate the work that they're doing, they just don't understand what it's like for counties on the western slope that have an abundance of federal land. And, you know, we have to, all of the rules we need to follow, and EIS and businesses, and they don't because it's very different in other parts of the state. And so I hope that we were able to make an impact. You know, every time I say in my testimony that Mesa County is 72% federal land, you can see their eyes, like, they're like, wow, that's a lot. Hopefully they'll be able to connect the dots that we need, an exemption process to better work cooperatively with both our state and federal partners, especially in the western slope. So we'll see what they wind up doing. We, did suggest the language, the red line, and I was, happy to be able to participate and share some insights. But, that took up a majority of my week last week. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Justin.
Thank you. Last week was kind of a slow week. I had, met with the Board of Human Services earlier in the week, and over their charts, they're definitely holding their own, and with all the unknowns of what the virus is gonna do or not do, that's the way it looks like. I think the numbers will be going up a little bit as time began, and how long that will last, nobody knows. But I think they've got it pretty well covered. And I also had a conference call with the Colorado Wildlife Council, and went over their budget for the upcoming year and what they're going to do and to promote the image of the hunters and the fishermen to the people in Colorado, and point out that all the conservation dollars that for wildlife comes from the anglers and the hunting community, and the good they do for the wildlife population in the state of Colorado. Just the end of the week. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Justman. My week was busy primarily on budgetary items. However, I did go out to the testing site, and there were a lot of cars out there, but the people out there were very patient. You didn't hear any horns honking. Everybody seemed to realize the wait was going to be long, but it was going to be worth it. Also, kudos to our facility team. So the testing site we got in there is out at the fairgrounds, and when we have the stadium, there's garages, doors on either end of that. It's enclosed back in, so you just simply drive through. Kind of like going out for service at a Ford dealership or something. The open garage, you drive through, and then you drive out the other side. But what happened is that the heating system in there hadn't been used in 35 years, because we don't need heat out there very often. And so, and it's a complex system because it's a large facility. So, facilities went out there and cranked it up, and it almost worked perfect, but not perfect. But thanks to the facilities, they got it up and running, and the people that were helping, and boy, are they heroes. But the people out there, that were doing the testing and helping, they were so thrilled to have heat. Because what we've done is put some patio heaters out there, but that wasn't really too effective. So it was nice and warm for them on some very cold days, and, wow, they were, it was really impressive to see the enthusiasm of our fellow citizens that are out there. Some are volunteer, by the way, but whether they're volunteer paid, just the fact they're out there, you can imagine sticking a testing system up 800 noses and so on. So anyway, that really, lifted the spirits. Is there anything further, commissioners, on reports? See nothing, Pete, did you give us a county manager report?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. Last week, quickly worked on budget, talking with the sheriff a little bit about some issues going on with the sheriff's office and offering support there, obviously. Worked on the CARES Act with our other cities and towns in the Mason County here, and, that was pretty much, extended my week. I did get a vacation day or two in, so that was a good time also, so thank you, Mr. Chair.
You call it vacation day, but, we call it just having to call you on the phone, which we did, so you didn't
I
really
did
get
take a
much
few
time
phone
off.
calls, that's
Yeah, we appreciate you being available. And, well, we're gonna go ahead now, let's move to the consent agenda. Consent agenda is intended to allow the board to spend its time on more complex items. These items are generally perceived as non-controversial and can be approved by a single motion. The public or board members may ask that an item on the consent agenda be moved from the consent agenda to the individual consideration agenda. We have 8 items today on the consent agenda, which I will read. Item number 1, approve a contract between Mesa County and the KUVL Group in the amount of $98,200 for an intercom recording system at the Mesa County Detention Facility and Mesa County Justice Center. Item number 2, approve an agreement between Mesa County and MA Concrete Construction Inc. for the 18.5 K99A Bridge Replacement Project in the amount of $1,305,000 and authorize the chair to sign. Item number 3, to approve a contract between Mesa County and the ERES companies for the remodel and construction of an office at the corner in the amount of $284,304. Authorize the chair to sign. Item number 4, reappoint Joy Potter to the Community Services Block Grant Tripartite Advisory Committee for a term of 3 years, effective November 19, 2020 to November 19, 2023. Item number 5, approve a letter to the State of Colorado Department of Local Affairs requesting the extension of the Community Development Block Grant 18-613 to November 30th, 2022 with an additional amount of $464,000 for the business loan fund and authorize the chair to sign. Item number 6, reappoint Calvin Waters to the Colorado State University Extension Tri-River Advisory Committee for a term of 3 years ending November 16th, 2023. Item number 7, reappoint Tammy Garrett to the Mason County Citizen Panel Review for a term of 2 years, effective December 3rd, 2020 to December 3rd, 2022. And finally, number 8, adopt a resolution authorizing the Mason County employees on a one-time vacation leave carryover of up to 60 hours set to expire 2021. Commissioners, do you have a request to move any of these items from consent to individual?
No.
No.
Right. Is anyone in the public, this is your opportunity, if you wish to have any of these items moved from consent to individual. Is anyone in the public who wishes to have that occur? Seeing none, we'll now, go to the chairs open for a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
I would make a motion that we approve the 8 consent agenda items as presented.
We have a motion, do I have a second? Thank you, it's been moved and seconded, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. We now have, the items needing individual consideration, and today we have 1 item on the individual consideration agenda. We do ask you limit your public comment to a maximum of 5 minutes per speaker unless otherwise restricted by the chair. Item number 1 is to consider the adoption of a resolution to adopt a supplemental budget, defray expenses, to appropriate additional financing sources, and to authorize budgetary transfers between funds and between spending agencies within a fund for Mesa County. Today we have our budget manager, Jeremy Caldwell. Jeremy, why don't you identify yourself for the record, and you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeremy Caldwell, Mesa County Budget Manager. This supplemental budget resolution that we're recommending has 2 major parts. The first part is requests that we've received from the departments. And a summary of those requests are from the sheriff's office, $907,630 increase, which is offset by grants. Clerk and recorder, $754,000 increase, offset by $811,540 in grants and fees. RTPO, $644,914 increase, offset by $1.2 million in grants. Human Services, $240,000, offset by grant funding. The Public Safety Sales Tax Fund, we have an increase in sales tax projections to close that out through the rest of the year. The Self-Insurance Fund, a $397,000 increase to bring that fund to balance. The Landfill Fund, an appropriation for some heavy equipment that they need, and some budget adjustments associated with refunding the certificates of participation. The next item is some line item transfers in the general fund for certain personnel expenditures. We looked at accounts that are going to be under budget, accounts that are going to be over budget, and we're recommending line item transfers to balance that out. So the net budget impact for those items would be 0. I have representatives from some of the departments that are requesting a supplemental budget. There's in-depth questions, and I also have a detailed schedule that lists the accounts that we would be supplementing. That's a high-level summary. What questions do you have for me?
Commissioner Justin?
Thanks for the repeat and whatnot. I think I don't know what you're doing, so thanks.
Commissioner Puglisi?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one question regarding the retirement account. So it says that we're now making transfers to ensure funding for the 0.5% retirement match that was implemented in 2020. Can you kind of talk me through that a little bit?
Yes, whenever we prepared the budget and loaded it into the system, I had the amounts for that retirement match budgeted in another payroll account in the non-departmental, we call it a non-departmental classification. Now that we see who signed up for the plan and how much that actually is going to cost, I'm recommending that we transfer the appropriate amounts that I've budgeted in other payroll to those departments. And if you look at line 101 on the general fund detailed schedule, you'll see a minus 58,044. And then underneath that, you'll see the departments that $54,000 is going into. So that balances out. And whenever you add all that up, it equals 0. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
great.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Great.
Thank you, Commissioner. Jeremy, so the way I've looked at it, it appears to me that this is the general day-to-day operations. We don't have any extraordinary transfers that are necessary for an extraordinary event, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. I have no further questions. Any further questions, Commissioners?
No.
No.
Okay, chair is currently open for a motion. Oh, let me see if there's anyone from the public, I'm sorry. Is there anyone from the public that would like to ask questions? Or comment? All right, the public input is closed. Chair is now currently open for a motion.
I would make a motion to adopt the resolution as presented.
It's been moved and seconded. That is the question before the board. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. The motion is adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. We appreciate the work. All right, we have, now we're going to move into unscheduled business. The unscheduled business portion of the agenda provides the public an opportunity to speak about issues that were not on the main agenda. We ask that you limit your public comment to a maximum of 5 minutes per speaker unless otherwise restricted by the chair. Testimony relating to scheduled agenda items will not be allowed during the unscheduled business. The purpose of the unscheduled business portion is for the Mason County Board of Commissioners to listen to the public. If Commissioners do not generally engage in debate or make comments during the unscheduled business portion. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address the commissioners? Ma'am, welcome, please come up, thank you for coming. Identify yourself for the record, you may proceed.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Jessica Joy. I'm a former youth pastor that once spiraled into the pornography industry. I went to the nation's top faith-based sex trafficking recovery with a 95% success rate of girls choosing never to return to a life of exploitation. I was adopted into a community that made me brave. Thank you for focusing on adoption this month. In the nation's top faith-based sex trafficking recovery, every single week we were reevaluated with our leaders. They wanted to make a space to make us brave. They created a weekly space. How can we make you brave? Because brave is a self-asserted, faith-based belief. Fear is a self-asserted, faith-based belief. In the United States currently, we have one faith-based belief forcing another faith-based belief to commit an act of immorality through coercion of their business licenses, or the unconstitutional fees, or threat of their nonprofit status. It's a violation of the Establishment Clause that our elected officials are sworn to protect. Welch County this week has taken the stance, the faith-based belief of being brave. Will Mesa County choose to join Weld County in choosing to be brave? This is a violation of our due process, what we are subjected to, and natural law. What is the definition of terrorism? For the FBI's definition of terrorism, an unlawful use of force and violence against persons or property to intimidate or coerce, let's focus on the word coerce, a government, a civilian population, or any segment thereof in the furtherance of a political or social objective, 28 CFR. If you look at Bitterman's chart of coercion, which those with a trafficking background are very familiar with the Bitterman's chart of coercion, which is used at Guantanamo Bay at a high school education, sorry. Those big words scare me every time. In Guantanamo Bay, to coerce that population, they deprive of social support so that they can't resist. They develop an intense sense of self. For example, the masks and constantly washing and, oh my goodness, we're going the wrong way down the aisle, oh my goodness. So, yes, deprives of social support, makes it very dependent on the interrogator, group isolation, cells with no humans, manipulation of stimuli, frustrates all action if not in compliance, restricts the environment, restricts food, deprives it of all stimuli, threats, creates anxiety and despair, threatens you to and controls what food you can eat. And there's mysterious changes of treatment all the time. What's going to be the rules today? There's an occasional indulgences. We could call that a stimulus check. Oh look, we can open our churches, yes. Stand for the Constitution is a local group in Grand Junction that last week there was over 75 people gathered and excited that they fully understand that they need to create an environment for our commissioners. How can we make you brave? How can we serve you? How can we make our pastors brave? How can we make our sheriffs brave? We are here to create an environment for you to make you brave. Is it veterans outside of businesses, like I was just down in Texas, and the veterans stood in front of businesses and they made them brave? Is it veterans in front of churches, which I saw the opinion pass on October 15th, that there are no restrictions, as we already knew, for our freedom of religion? Do we need veterans? How can we, the people, make you brave. We are sorry for getting you into office and then abandoning you. That would have never happened at my sex trafficking recovery. Every single day, there's a line of volunteers that made me brave. I want to thank you so much for your service. I want to say I am here to encourage you I'm here to make you brave. I'm here to encourage Grand Junction tonight to make you brave. We stand behind you. How can we expect you to be brave if we are not in your ear? We are here to make you brave. And I want to say thank you for joining Weld County and standing by the choice of personal responsibility. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Jessica, for coming today. Do we have anyone else from the public who would wish to address the commissioners? Now's your opportunity. Seeing no further requests.